The theme I've been playing around this week is around the idea of maintaining an expansive view. Maintaining an expansive view. I've also been thinking a little bit this week about my journey in life so far and really my journey with depression and how depression has showed up in my life from time to time over the course of the years, of my 50 years. And I wonder sometimes, what's the chemical part of it? What's the environmental part of it? What's the life experience part of it? How much of it is being a victim part of it? How much of it is this, that, and the other thing? Because what I do deeply believe is that my soul and my heart are pure, as I believe that about every single one of us. That there's a spark within every single one of us that is untouched, that is pure, that is whole, that can never be touched. No matter the abuses that we've experienced, the hardships, the trials and tribulations, Roar spoke to them just a little bit. No matter how much life has happened to us, there's a part of every single one of us that's absolutely pure. As pure as the moment when I first held my nephew the first time, when I was there when he was born, and how I just sobbed at the miracle of all of it. And then when my daughter was born, and again, being the miracle of all of it and the purity of it, and maintaining that vision of her life, maintaining that vision of his life, and I don't even know what the word is, the wildness, the craziness, the adventure of the human experience, and how it has its way with each one of us, and how we all come up with our own tale about it, how we all have our own story. And I loved what this quote, some of you may have heard that I came across from Brene Brown a couple weeks ago, that if you don't accept and live inside your story, you're going to be hustling for your worthiness for the rest of your life. So, do I feel vulnerable standing up here and talking about my own depression? Sure, but is it part of my story? Damn right it is, and it's part of a lot of people's stories. Abuse and challenge and whatever the stuff we've gone through, right? And I thought, what are some of when in those pockets and periods of deeper depression that I've experienced, what are some of the common denominators that have been there? And one of them I realized is that my viewpoint of the world got very, very, very small. Very small. How do you make a mountain out of a molehill? You get close to it. You get real, real close to it. And some of these things that we get close to, we don't necessarily mean to get close to them, but we find ourselves close to them at some point in our lives. And it's interesting that when I can get a little bit of distance from certain things, I can realize that it's a molehill and not a mountain. And then along with the help of beloveds in my life and sacred trusted people, I can start to work with certain things, work with the challenges. And what I want to discuss is maintaining the power of maintaining an expansive viewpoint and how challenging that can be sometimes. Because we get caught up in our lives, don't we? We get really into our lives. It's tough. The Buddhist consciousness, there's an idea in Buddhism that says the witness consciousness. To witness ourselves, it takes a tremendous amount of wherewithal to be able to witness my life as it's happening. I mean, that's spiritual practice. To be able to witness myself and how I might be operating out of something less than my divine ideal. Something less than my spiritual greatness. That it's easy to get caught up in, from time to time, the challenges of our mortality, the experiences of life, and begin to then identify with them as truth rather than a transitory experience. And that takes a tremendous amount of spiritual wherewithal to be able to witness life, my life, and to be able to objectively look at it because I'm the subject of my life. You're with me, right? Are we all together? So, I was with some friends this week. I had a great opportunity to spend a couple of days out in Chicago. It's supposed to be a dad-daughter trip, but my daughter's committed to her volleyball right now, so I went solo. And that's the way that was, and it turned out to be a real blessing. I got to hang with some friends, and one of my very good friends in life, he's 40 or 41, and he started talking about aging, and I said, shut up. She said, shut it. I don't want to hear about it right now, okay, right? And then I could probably say the same thing to somebody that's my elder. Just shut up, all right? I don't want to hear about it. But anyway, it's like aging is part of the human experience, yes? I mean, our bodies change, right? I mean, I look at being a child. You look at being a child, and some of the things we used to be able to do, we can't do quite as well or as efficiently anymore, and aging's part of it. I know our own Walter and Barbara Drew have done many workshops on what is it called? Creative aging. I was going to say the wisdom of aging, but I wanted to make sure we get it right. I'm sure there's...
Passion, purpose, and possibility.
Well, there it is. Full commercial and scene. Creative aging, how to embrace it. And one of the things that's so important to each one of us, I believe, is to maintain an expansive view. It's interesting, being in Chicago, one of the things I love about it is to walk in amongst the big city. Big, tall buildings, right? And not just tall buildings, but there's lots of them. It's a big city. I love getting in there and walking around. I was staying in this beautiful place that wasn't too far from the city center, from downtown, and during the day or even late at night, I would walk into the city to experience the buzz and to experience the fullness of it. And Eric Butterworth said in one of his lessons, that there was a family in New York City one day, is what he talked about, that they were tourists in the city, and they were in and amongst the canyons of the big city, and they wanted to have a more expansive viewpoint. So what did they do? They went to the top of the Empire State Building. And we did this recently, actually, just this last December. Barry and myself and Mealy, we went to the top of the Empire State Building, and you look out and you can see the city. You can walk around the whole thing, and you can see Manhattan up and down, and you can see into the boroughs, and you can see it, and it's an expansive view. And what is it? It's inspiring. What do we have around here that's inspiring? Magnificent vistas. Extraordinary sunrises and sunsets. And as I just found out this morning, apparently a 3-story moratorium on any building in the city, right? Apparently in Santa Fe there's a 3-story moratorium. So we're going to maintain these vistas, and you kind of get out of town a little bit, or I just look to the west sometimes, and if there's a little bit of cloud cover like today, and then it kind of fizzles off and you see the sunset, it's gorgeous. And there's something that it does to my soul. And there's something that it does to each one of us as we kind of get out of our lives sometimes. Have you ever noticed how you can get so deeply into your life that you can't see? That you're so into it that sometimes it's I'm in my family challenges, I'm in my financial struggles, I'm in my creative challenges, I'm in my relational challenges. Sometimes I'm so deep down in there with family stuff. Did I already say that you can't see sometimes. I forget that God is. I forget that there's an expansive view that I could go to. I forget that sometimes I need to get out of my house and go take a walk. Grab Journey and go explore something and see something else and catch that little bit of a higher viewpoint so I can get recharged. The first part of this, most of us tend to think of the second half of life as largely about getting old, dealing with health issues, and letting go of our physical life. I know most people in here would say hogwash with that, right? I'm into vitality, but I want to speak to any part of us that might be in any way starting to wrap things up. My partner's dad is kind of, and I appreciate this isn't a sermon on conscious completion. All right, because I'm mindful right now that my partner's dad is kind of doing his like world tour of completion. He just went to Lithuania to see his family. He went to New Zealand again. You know, he's kind of doing his thing to start to wrap his life up. And I'm thinking to myself, that's a beautiful, wonderful thing, but I hope until he really wraps it up, until that last breath, that there's some real vitality inside of him. That there's some real livingness inside of him. You know, as I look at my own mom and I think of my own mom, and she wants to live for some period of time, but she wants to make sure, this is weird because I'm talking about my mom and she's sitting right there, but it's my mom. But she wants to make sure that until her last breath, there's vitality there. And if there's not vitality there, then what are we doing? Right, Mom? Right. That there's vitality there. Now, each one of us is going to make our own choice about how we're going to live our lives. And this isn't a sermon about that either. But until we check out, can we maintain an expansive viewpoint so we're living with some inspiration? Can Carolyn maintain since I'm calling people out, let's just go for it. Can Carolyn maintain an expansive viewpoint so that she can still contribute to my life? I want Carolyn to be able to contribute to my life as long as she's around. But to contribute to my life, I need Carolyn to have an expansive viewpoint because I don't want to go down the hole with her. From time to time, we might need to talk about, okay, I'm struggling with this area and that area, and we talk about it. That's right, but what's our end game? What's our goal is to get out of that and have some sort of inspiration. Is it always going to be there? Of course not. Do I think that at some point in my life I'll experience another pocket of depression? Probably. Not that I want it. There's these ebbs and these flows in life that we go through. But what I want, what I'm interested in and committed to, is actually a remembrance of my truth when those things start to happen. A remembrance of the power and presence and love of God as those things start to happen. But in order to have the remembrance, I need to have the relationship. And I'm interested in each one of us having the relationship. Our own unique, inspired, profound, deeply intimate relationship with the Spirit of your own heart, with the God of your own understanding. And then from that place, we can be filled up from the sacred well of life that resides everywhere. We can tap into it, we can jack into it, and be lifted and raised and praised in its own name and nature, such that the words that come from our mouths are life-giving. The gaze that comes from our eyes sparkles. The step that we have in our gait has a little bit more pep in it, perhaps. There's a little more bounce in our ability. And no matter what our abilities, our physical abilities are, as is the case with what was mentioned with Helen Keller, that we still feel this desire to contribute and to serve and to live from that expansive viewpoint. What I want you to know and what I want to share is that you're important. You're vitally important. And you will continue to be vitally important to each of us as a human family as long as you're drawing breath. And then your importance will be determined in some way that I have no idea about, and most of us don't, once you've shed the mortal coil. But I want you to know you're important and you're important to me. I need you to contribute to my life as I desire to contribute to yours. To maintain an expansive view of what Robin's teaching in the prayer workshop right now. Prayer gets us to an expansive view of something. It has the capacity to raise us out of the doldrums of victimhood and a lack of self-belief, perhaps, and feeling small and that life is happening to us, or that I'm aging and that there's nothing I can do about it and I just have to live with it. But prayer and our own relationship with the Spirit and maintaining an expansive viewpoint lifts us into a place where we can be of service, where we can share our lives with each other, where we realize that I don't have anything to be ashamed of. I simply have a story that I'm living. No one in here has anything to be ashamed of. Say, I have nothing to be ashamed of. Nothing to be ashamed of. And life's weird and it's hard and there might be things that we would go back and redo. But that doesn't mean I have to live with shame about it. Shame just crushes my expansive viewpoint. Embarrassment crushes my expansive viewpoint. Bashfulness crushes my expansive viewpoint. And again, I'm not saying that you have to go on top of the monolith that's right out here and proclaim the glory of God to everybody that comes down the street. But I'm saying that there's a spiritual dignity that we live with that can aid in having an expansive viewpoint. Go to the top. There's a reason Jesus said, raise your gaze in prayer. One of the beautiful moments, I grew up going to Catholic Mass, and I was an altar boy and did all the good stuff, right? And I loved it. And this was in my adulthood. We went to Mass for some reason. I used to love going to Mass with my grandparents into my adulthood. And one of the priests said, normally the priests say, and let's what? Bow our heads in prayer, right? And this priest said, and let's raise our heads in prayer. And everybody went, right? Have it. And let's raise our heads in prayer. And I was like, wow, that's cool. And so I'm like, yeah, let's raise our heads in prayer, right? And I remember, I looked around and everybody put their head down. But there's a reason we raise our eyes in prayer. There's a reason Scripture says go to the upper room. Go to the attic, not to the basement. Don't go downstairs where it's dark and dingy and small. And go to the upper room where there's a vision for your life. Go upstairs. Go to the top of the building. Go to the top of your consciousness. All of this is metaphysical, gang. We're talking about going, the beautiful sunrise, the beautiful sunset, going to the top of the Empire State Building, going to the top of the Hancock or the top of the Sears Tower or the top of whatever, to the rim of the Grand Canyon. Even my daughter, we walked up to it and she said, whoa! It's an expansive view. And it truly is one of those things. You can't describe the Grand Canyon unless you've been there. You just can't describe it, the vastness, to somebody else till you've been there. And I can sit here and talk about the vastness of the Spirit and the power and presence and the glory of God, but it's one of those things that you get it when you've been there. And when you go to that upper room, and when you go to that expansive place to pray, when you go to the top, when you go to that place to get that expansive viewpoint, you know, and then you desire to give it away so that when your friends and family and colleagues or whoever it is are stuck down in the darkness, they're stuck in the conversation about how we're all going to blow ourselves to smithereens because of how many nuclear weapons we have, and that the world's going to crap, and all this other kind of stuff, that you can literally be a place that takes the conversation to a higher viewpoint, thereby healing that particular environment in that moment. Most of us don't want to sit around and talk about how crappy the world is becoming and how afraid we are. We get the fear. I get afraid too, but does it feel good? Is it a place we want to hang out? No, we want to go hang out in the viewpoint. We want to live in that utopia, that beautiful place of being where there's creativity and all gifts are celebrated and people are recognized and honored and loved, no matter what their gifts are, no matter what their expression of being is, that there's still a recognition of the Spirit there. And we do that from living at that expansive viewpoint. That high view where we're seeing things as they're meant to be seen. Again, Eric Butterworth, we're not here trying to make things right. We're not here to set things right, but we're here to see them rightly. We're here to see them rightly. For God so loved you. God so loved you that it breathed life into you, and through whatever process, through whatever magnificent process that babies are made. Metaphysically, of course. This is not a sexual education class. I think we all know how babies are made. But through whatever process, that miracle that each of us came into being and came through our mother's womb into being, you have a right and deserve to be here and be all of yourself. And that's what I tell myself. And that's the sacred prayer that I invite to dance on everything, on all of our hearts, is that Each of us have a right to be here, and a right to express, and a right to be love, and a right to be in love, and a right to paint, and a right to be a poet, and a right to sing and dance. And that's the high viewpoint. An expanded view. I'm inviting you this week into maintaining an expanded viewpoint, an expansive view, where you can look at the world and see possibility. Where it's our habit, we're creating a habit out of looking at the world and seeing solution and possibility and not fear and anxiety. Not morbidity, but life, beauty, love. And that each of us deserve it, have it, live it, or enjoy because of it. Let's take a moment and pray it up. So again, what's the expansive viewpoint that's calling to you? I like doing this. It feels like it opens me up to life. Not that it's out there, not that it's directly pointed at where my heart's pointing to, but just to like feel the expansive nature of life. To open my heart to feel more of this love. There is a vision that is at the center of each one of us, and I'm inviting that vision to come forth today. To come forth into expression, to come forth in love, to come forth into being a vision that's healing, that's healthy, that's whole, that contributes to life, that contributes to solution, that contributes to possibility. If we're interested in living in possibility and solution, I invite you to say yes. Solution and possibility for your own life, say yes. Yes. And to celebrate it.
Yes.
Yes. To know it, to be it, to feel it. I know that God is the life of each one of us. It is that intimate, most intimate presence. It is good. Is it a blessing? It is a blessing. Is it a blessing? It is a blessing. And I recognize it is good. I'm grateful. I call it good, and so it is. Amen.